Hi, I'm David Harry, and in this particular video I'm going to be showing you how to create a Macrium boot disk, and that's going to be using an external USB drive. Now the reason why you might want to do this is because you don't want to be running Macrium under Windows and you just want to use it as a rescue media disk, or you want to use it to actually do all your actual disk imaging directly from, like, say, the boot prompt and stuff when you switch the computer on. Personally, it's how I always do it. I never do imaging inside Windows. I always do it outside of it. So what we're going to do here is create a USB like boot disk, but also the boot disk is also going to have a partition on it where you can actually, store your disk images as well. So it's actually a very convenient, like, one disk solution. So the one disk will boot, and then it will also save the actual disk images as well. Now, in order to do this, you need two bits of software. So the first one is going to be the MiniTool Partition Wizard. Now there's going to be links for both of these things actually in the descriptions anyway. And then also you're obviously going to need a Reflect as well, Macrium Reflect. Now for this particular exercise, I'm just using the free version, and it's all I've ever used because I don't need any of the more extensive functionality of the paid for version. I just basically want to do simple disk imaging, and this is perfect for it. And then what I'm also using is a standalone, like, external USB SSD inside a caddy. So I'm just using like a little 128 SSD in a USB case. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is crack on and try and get through this as quick as I can. Now what you've got to do first of all is prep your USB storage device or your USB drive. Oh, sorry, another important thing to maybe explain here as well is that you can't do this, or you can't do this particular procedure with a USB thumb drive, because Windows won't allow you to use multiple partitions on a thumb drive. So it has to be a hard drive or an SSD inside a case. Okay, so what I'm going to do here, we're going to launch MiniTool Partition Wizard. Like I say, the link for this tool is in the descriptions, and this is free. So what we need to do here is prep the drive first. So in this list of drives that I've got here, it's this drive here that I'm looking at. Now at the moment, this one is actually formatted to NTFS. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to right click on it and do delete, and then go to the top corner there on the left and click apply, and then we'll allow that to then delete the disk. And I would recommend you do this with whatever disk that you're using, and however many partitions may be on that disk, make sure they're all deleted, and then we take the disk back to a completely empty disk, just like I've done there. Then the next thing to do is to format the disk. So what we're going to do is right click and then click create. Now this is really important. Now what you have to select here is Fat32, because you need Fat32 in order for Macrium later to actually install all the boot files, and it has to do it on Fat32, I think, because of the UEFI BIOS situation and stuff, which requires a Fat32 BIOS at the start of the disk. So basically format the entire disk to Fat32. So I'm going to OK that. Then again, go to the top left corner here, click apply, say yes. And then that's just going to take a few seconds to do that. So as we can see there, it's effectively just formatted the whole disk. I mean, at the end there, you'll see it says 8 megabytes unallocated. Don't worry about that. So at the moment, we've got a disk which has got 118 gigabytes completely formatted to Fat32. Obviously, this will be a different size on your disk, and this is just only 118 because of the size of the disk that I'm using. So now what we need to do is launch Reflect. And like I say, I'm using the free version because the functionality of like the later or the paid for versions, I don't need them myself personally. So this one does exactly what I need it to do. And if all you're doing is wanting to create and store and then reinstall disk images, it's all you need as well. Okay, so once Macrium Reflect is launched, go to here at the taskbar where it says other tasks. So click on that. And then just come down to where it says create rescue media. Click on that. Now, what's going to happen here, I've already had certain things installed in this, so this kind of updated itself to whatever version of like Windows PE that it needed to put on, and certain other install files. So this is going to go through quite quickly, but it may be the case that if you've put a fresh install of Reflect on, it's going to go away and want to download a bunch of like extra files to do with the PE or the Windows PE version that it needs to use. So don't worry about that. You just download it, and then once you're there, kind of continue at the stage where I'm at now. So then what we do, we click next, and then this is just telling us the various things that is going to be installed within the Windows PE version. These are like drivers, basic drivers, so it can communicate with certain things on the computer's motherboards and stuff like that. So don't worry about that. Click next. And then from here, what I'm going to do is create like the actual boot partition now. Now, as you can see here, I've selected 32-bit. Now, what it is, you'll get the option when you go through it to do either a 64-bit version of PE or a 32-bit version of PE. Now, I'm using 32-bit only because I'm going to be using this boot disk on some really old computers which can't understand the 64-bit bootloader or anything like that. And the other thing is as well, if you do it on 32-bit, modern computers which are 64-bit will read the 32-bit bootloader or the 32-bit partitioning. So you're dead safe with 32-bit. It'll work on 32 and 64. It's just in my particular case here, if I was to have gone to 64-bit, I couldn't use it on some of the older laptops that I use. Okay, so down here, it says here to USB device, that's fine. And that's the device that we've just formatted to Fat32. Okay, now what I'm going to do here is click on here, and it says enable multi-boot MBR UEFI USB support. Now, the reason why I'm doing that is because then this boot partition will actually be recognized by modern UEFI computers and older, just standard legacy BIOS computers as well. So basically, I'm in 32-bit and I'm giving it MBR and UEFI support. So effectively, there wouldn't really be much that this disk wouldn't, boot into. Okay, so from here now, just click finish. And then what it's going to do, it's going to go away, build all these things up, and then like write them to the disk and whatnot, and then it's done. So there we go. So say there, yes, okay. Now it's saying here, Windows PE USB rescue media successfully created. Please boot this new rescue media to ensure it works. Okay, well, we're not going to boot it straight away because we're going to have to do something else to the disk. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, I'm going to exit Macrium, and then I'll go back to MiniTool. So now we look in MiniTool here, we can see this single partition, and what that is, that's now just got like a small amount of data on it to do with Windows PE and Macrium. So now what we're going to do is reduce the size of that partition. So if we right click on it, and then we'll go move resize, and then what you do, you just literally grab the arrow at the end and drag it down. Now I'm going to drag it as low as it'll go. So it's saying there 0.35 of a gigabyte. Now, the reason why I'm doing this is because I want to have the Macrium partition as small as it can be, and then free up the rest of the disk so I can reuse the rest of the disk. Okay, so I'm going to click OK there, and then again click on apply, and then click yes. Now the thing is with this, and this is saying it's going to only be like 360 megabytes in size or something after it's done. Well, that's fine, because what happens is with that particular partition, it never gets bigger anyway in the future. So you're fine to like pull that right down to the smallest size that it can be. Okay, so that's all fine now. And then what we're going to do here is unallocated, which is the big huge space now left on the disk. We're going to now format that so that we can actually use that to store our images on. So one partition will boot the disk, and then the other partition we'll use for storing the actual disk images. So what I'm going to do here is right click and click create. Now, you can do a number of different formats here, but what I'm going to use is exFat. Now the reason why I'm going to use exFat is because I can then put this disk into a lot of different things, say like a Mac or something like that, because as well as it being you know, able to boot into Macrium and then to store the images, if you've got like a large space here and it's like way bigger than your Macrium images, you might as well use the rest of the disk for storage for other things as well. And just for the sake of compatibility and being able to write back to the disk properly, exFat will allow you to kind of use it on as many platforms as possible and have full access to the disk. And also you won't have single file size issues, you know, or single file size problems with exFat either. I mean, if you went to Fat32 or something like that, you then got limitations on like single file sizes, which would get in the way for our Macrium images as well. But like I say, exFat, I use it because it can be read and write to by a lot of different operating systems. So that's cool. So I'm going to click OK on that. And then again, go to the left, click apply, and we'll let that go off and make that partition up. Okay, so it's done its job. So what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to go into, let's see, Explorer. Sorry, not Explorer, we're just going to go looking at my drives. Now, as we can see here, I've now got a drive F and a drive G. Well, what it is here, drive F is actually our Macrium bootloader and all the PE files which are necessary to run the Macrium from the boot. And then we've now got a nice big blank space where we can then start putting our disk images into. Now, the other thing that I do at this point, sometimes it's if you're not careful, you can end up wiping some of these files out and make it useless. So now what we're going to do, we're going to hide this partition. So as you can see here right now, we've got an F partition and a G partition. Both of them are off the same drive. But what I'm going to do just for security, because I don't know if you're like me, but sometimes I don't even look sometimes at what I'm doing, and I end up pulling files or deleting files, and then it end up crying my eyes out because I've done something stupid. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to make this partition invisible. So what we do, go back to the MiniTool, and then if we go and click on the Macrium boot partition here, right click, and then we've got a function here that says hide partition. So click that, and then again go to the left, click apply. And then what this is going to do, this takes a little while, but what it's going to do, it's going to like do something to this partition in order so that Windows can't see it. Which then stops us from accidentally wiping it out or moving files to and from it or deleting files. I'm not entirely sure whether it makes it invisible to like Linux or Mac or anything like that. But for the vast majority of my particular use, it's going to be under Windows, and it just gives me that extra little level of protection as well. Okay, like I said, this particular part takes a little while to do. I mean, I'm on a fairly fast system, and it still takes a while. So there we go, it's done it. So we'll OK that. Now if we go back and have a look, hey, can't see it anymore. So that's really good, because it just means that we can't go wiping it out. So all we now see is the main partition, which we can then put anything in. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to switch the computer down and switch to my camera. And what I'll do, I'll show you the disk now booting into two or three different machines. One will be my main workstation, which has got a UEFI BIOS on, and then the other one's going to be an old legacy like netbook thing as well. So if you just bear with us a second, I'll just boot down and switch to my camera, and I'll show you it actually working now. Okay, so what I've done here, I'm going to boot into one of my old little netbooks, and as you can see, there's my little SSD, external USB SSD that we've just created all the Macrium stuff on. So I'm going to boot this up, and then what I've got to do here, I'm going to hit F12, because on this particular machine, what this does, it goes to the drive selection for the booting. This will be different on different machines, but it just happens to be F12 on this, and then that's the drive that I want, so I'll hit enter. Then what's going to happen now, the computer is going to start pulling the files off the boot partition for Macrium and Windows PE. And it might look like it's gonna like be stalling and stuff. Don't worry about it. It takes a little bit of time, and I'm not gonna rush through this. I'll let this do it in real time, just so you know yourself that it does take a little while for these things to boot in. And the reason why we're able to boot this is because we did use the 32-bit version of Windows PE. Now what Windows PE is a very, very stripped down version of Windows operating system, which then people use to install, say, their own programs in, to get their programs running under a very minimal Windows, you know, background and stuff. So basically this is just booting in now. As you can see here, free edition 32-bit Win PE. And also because we put it in MBR legacy mode as well as UEFI, so it'll dual boot onto UEFI and also legacy devices like this one. So as you can see there, we're right into the actual Macrium interface. So from here, we can either go saving images or restoring images. So I'll show you to do it on another machine. Okay, so here's another computer that I'll use to boot up with, and this one's a little bit more modern, and this one will either be UEFI or in legacy mode. And as we can see, there's our little USB boot disk. So I'll switch on, and then on this particular one, it's F9, I hope. Yeah, F9 to get to my boot menu, or my drive options. And then what I'll do, I'll just scroll down here to that drive, because that's the drive that I need to boot from. In this particular instance, this is actually booting legacy, although it could do UEFI if I forced it to. So again, I'll hit enter on that. Now this one might boot a little faster. The other thing worth noting here as well is that although this machine will do both legacy or UEFI, it is actually a 64-bit machine, and as you can see, it's booting fine off a 32-bit version of the image for WinPE and Macrium. So there we go, that should get in soon. Yay, there we have it. Okay, as you can see there, Windows 32, although it is a 64-bit machine. And there we go, we're straight into the actual, into the Macrium menu there. Okay, so I'll just do one more machine now as well, which is going to be a workstation. So for the third example, what I'm going to do is use a 64-bit workstation, which is in UEFI mode. So what I'm going to do is break into the boot menu here with F12. And then what I'll do, I'll go down to UEFI there. That ASMT is the name of the drive, as you've seen earlier on with the other two. But this time we're telling it to boot UEFI. And don't forget, this is 32-bit, but it's a 64-bit machine. So we'll click that. And then it'll pause a little bit like the others did, and then it'll get into it. But what's important to note here is that this is in UEFI mode, and it's also a 32-bit version booting on a 64-bit machine. So here we go, it's booting back in now. Yay, there we go, Macrium Reflect, and as you can see, 32-bit WinPE booting on a 64-bit UEFI BIOS. Okay, let me just let that get in and settle down. There we go. So as you've seen it, that's on 3 different machines. I know that's been a bit boring, you know, showing 3 different machines, but it's just to show that it actually boots on basically anything. Okay, so I hope you found this video interesting, and if, you know, hopefully it's helped people as well to understand how to, one, make the disk and how to use it to boot from it as well. And if you're interested in saving images and retrieving images and whatnot using the boot disk, if you check the links below, or if you're on Windows or certain other platforms, there'll be pop-ups appear on the screen here as well to show you another video where I'll show you how to do that as well. And yeah, if you like this video, maybe take a look at some of my other stuff on my channel, maybe subscribe or whatnot. But anyway, thanks very much for watching my video. Take care. Goodbye now.